My name is Sister Mary Niere, and I belong to the Carmelite community of Zamboanga City. For the past 21 years now, I have been going around giving these talks to many people practically around the world. Now, when I was asked by my community, I have been in the convent for more than around 61 years because I entered at the age of 18 and I am 79 years old now. For the past 40 years, I've been inside the convent, living the ordinary lives, simple life of cleaning and washing, and that was my life. After a while, I was asked by my superiors to give these talks. I felt I was like a fish out of water. Why? Because I know I am not prepared for this kind of work. But then I have come to realize that we must not limit God by our limitations. If God wants to use us, we will allow Him to use us freely. Why? Because I entered at the age of 18. I am only a high school graduate. I have not gone to college. And every time people will ask me my biodata, they are thinking that, I have a doctorate in psychology and all of that because people today would not believe unless you have higher education. But they are very surprised because I tell them that I have no biodata. Why, sister? Because I have not even gone to college. And then so they will ask me, sister, what is your work in the convent? They are thinking that maybe I become a superior, maybe I become a mistress of novice, and they will be able to explain that to people before I give the talks. And so, what are you really good at in the convent, sister? And so I tell them that, I'm very good in feeding dogs and cats. Ah, sister, that cannot be. You cannot put that in the biodata. So I explain to them, the Carmelites are hermits. We do not talk. We only talk 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. After that, we really do not talk. Even if we are together, we are very silent. However, because I'm very talkative, I forget that I am in Carmel, so I start to talk. So one day the superior said, you are going to disturb the silence of the nuns. So we will make you in charge of the dogs and the cats because even if you talk, it will not disturb them. So that is my expertise, feeding the dogs and the cats. So anyway, people are still very interested to listen. Why? I've been in the convent for 40 years. No one knows me. But suddenly, I am out now, and of course, I accept that people know me very well. Why? Why did God lead me out of the cloister after so many years? Why did I have to go around the world? It is because God has a message, and the message is very important. And the message is change your life, be transformed. And the means that I am offering is a life of prayer. And people are telling me, sister, what kind of prayer are you talking about? Because we are also praying. And so I was telling them that it is the reason why I'm giving the seminars, because I have to explain to you what kind of prayer that will really change us, that will really transform us. Today we need to be transformed. Otherwise, the world will not change and we will be destroyed. That is why God has a message, and in His infinite wisdom, I think He chose me to be able to deliver that message. Be transformed, change your life. And it means that it is very true that many people are praying, especially Filipinos. I've been all over the world, and every time I go to a place, I know that the Filipinos are praying. Even our Muslim brothers in the Philippines are also praying. We are very prayerful as a people. But why is it that we haven't changed? The Philippines is the only Catholic country in Asia, but we are the most corrupt country around Asia also. Why is it that there is a difference? If you really look at our newspapers, the killing, the thieves, and all of these are all sinful. It is very, very much against our life of prayer. Why is it that there is a division in our life of prayer and in our life outside of prayer? Is it because if prayer is really authentic, it means that we have encountered God. And if we encounter God, there is a change in our life. Is it possible that you and I have encountered God, have not encountered God all through the years that we are praying? I don't think so. Because God is a faithful God. We have encountered God. But it is in this seminar that I will explain to you why are we not changed. Because every genuine encounter of God have a tremendous change in our life. You cannot stay near a fire, a burning furnace, without being burned, without being warm. So why are we not changing? That's why I'm going to explain it in this seminar. Now, I am giving these talks in the light of the doctrine of Saint Teresa of Jesus and Saint John of the Cross. Now, one day when Saint Teresa reached a very high degree of prayer, she was asked by her confessor to write about her interior journey. And she said that at the beginning, she finds it very difficult. Why? Because she said, the more I pray and the more I feel that I am closer to God, the more I feel that I do not know God. Why? Because God is a mystery. And secondly, she said, the more I pray, the more I realize that I do not know myself. There are many things in myself that I don't know, and there are many things in myself that I do not like to know. However, one day, she had a beautiful vision, and in that vision, she saw a castle made of one stone, a sparkling diamond. At the there were many, many rooms in that castle. But at the center of the castle was a beautiful light lighting up all the rooms. And she said, that is the symbol of the Blessed Trinity in each one of us, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Of course, the room closest to the center are more lighted than the rooms farther from the center. That is why here she was able to explain to us that there are different stages in our life of prayer. There are stages that we are very close to the center, but there are stages that we are also far from the center. Now, she said that it was so beautiful that she thought it is God. The castle was so beautiful. Now, let me digress a little here. You know, I have a youth movement in Zamboanga where I also explain about this. And the young people ask me, Sister, why is it that Teresa see a castle in her vision? And that is a very good question. Why? It is because our life of prayer is very much influenced by our consciousness. And our consciousness is influenced by the society in which we live. That's the reason when I give these talks on Saint Teresa, who is the reformer of Carmel, and also with Saint John of the Cross, who is the reformer of the Carmelite Fathers, I am not going, I'm only using basically their doctrine, but I am using the examples, our examples today. That's why there is a reason why we need to change. Because if there is no change, we will not be able to communicate to our young people today. If you notice, there are plenty of renewal programs. Why? Because we are trying to adjust it according to our times. Because if we don't change, there will be a very big gap with our young people and the older generation. Now, according to Saint Teresa, the first three, let me explain here. There are 7 stages in our life of prayer. The first 3 stages, he said, and I'm going to explain this, the characteristic of each stage. But he said, the first 3 stages, I put it there continuous. Why? Because, he said, when you enter the first stage, you can go to the second stage, and you can go to the third stage through the grace of God, of course, but through your own effort. For example, you go to Mass, you are faithful to your duties, and you are doing all of this, you can move on from the first, second, and third stage. But the moment you reach the third stage, you cannot go beyond. Why? Because in the first 3 stages, every person who are there is really, whenever there is a crisis situation, the persons here use their natural faith, hope, and love. For example, I'll give you an example. If you slap me, this is a crisis situation. If I am in those stages, even if I pray very, very much, because I'll explain that, the different stages, especially the third stage, I think we Filipinos are there. We are very faithful to our life, to our masses, our communion, and we go to our prayer meetings and all of that, and we really pray a lot. But if we are in that stage, if there is a crisis situation, I will respond in my own human way. Now, for example, you are going to slap me, I will also would like to slap you also. If you do not talk to me, I will not also talk to you. Now, it is only in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th stage that I will respond the way Jesus responded. Why? Because as soon as I reach the 3rd level, it is said that in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level, Jesus is taking you by the hand. But the moment you reach the 3rd stage and you are going beyond, He carry you in His arms. Why? Because you cannot enter the other side unless you are transformed. So what is it that transformed the person? It is what Saint John of the Cross said, the dark night. What is the dark night? The dark night are the problems in our life. Whether it is human problem, married problem, financial problems. And he said that the moment you reach the 3rd level, God carry you in His arms. That's why your life is out of control. Because it is God who is controlling your life now. Many of us in the Philippines have been undergoing this. But many of us could not go beyond. Why? Because according to St. John of the Cross, there is no one who explains to them. So our life is only here, and then we go back and all of that, and we never go beyond. Where there is interior freedom, where my faith, hope, and love becomes like Jesus. There is a transformation that happens in the dark night, in our sufferings. According to St. John of the Cross, it is God's action that enters into our hearts. And God's light is so bright that we are not accustomed. And so, my eyes is not prepared for this blinding light that is God's light. That is why it becomes dark. And then, God's presence, I'm not so accustomed. So it becomes very painful. However, God will not leave me until I have changed, unless I am going to escape the dark night. Many times I tell them that it is good to go to psychologist because you will be helped. But in psychology, they will resolve your problem. But in the dark night, no. You have to go through the pain and embrace your cross until God will set you free. Situations will not change, but you have changed. Because God, during the dark night, has transformed your faith, your hope, and your love, that you already believe, hope, and love the way Jesus loved. Now, let me explain in the different levels of prayer. The different levels of prayer is this. There is one prayer called the discursive prayer. What is discursive prayer? Discursive prayer is formula prayer. When I say the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory be to the Father, the novenas, this is formula prayer. All kinds of prayer will lead us deeper into contemplation if we do it properly. Now, discursive prayer, that is still in the natural level, it will lead me deeper if I reflect on it. But if I pray like, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, it will not. That's why it's better if you have no time to say prayers that are not so long as you can meditate on it and reflect on it so that you will be able to go deeper. Now, but this kind of prayer really, many times, is a prayer without conviction and without, you are afraid, that is why you are doing this prayer. You know, I was giving talks to a certain group who are the governors and also politicians, and I said, this kind of prayer, even going to Mass, this is what politicians do when election is coming. They all go to church without conviction because they have a certain purpose. It is this kind of prayer. Now, if it is that, it will not help us. The next kind of prayer is meditation. Now, in meditation, you use your mind, your memory, and your imagination. Many of us had been wounded in our mind. Many hurting things we have heard from those whom we love, even in childhood. Our memories are full of hard feelings. Now, they said that if you allow Jesus to enter into your mind, your memory, and your imagination, the presence of Jesus there is healing. So this is meditation is all about. For example, what is very effective is what Saint Teresa said. She said, you take the passion of Jesus as your meditation. But not only the passion of Jesus, more or less you know your own weakness. Because the purpose of prayer is really to change us. So for example, you are a person who always complains. Even for little things you complain. Now, you choose in the passion of Jesus, where Jesus is most silent when he is suffering. Then you can use your mind, your memory, your imagination. You can imagine this. But men are not really prone to imagination. It's the women. But then they can take a single word there that Jesus was bleeding and Jesus was all of this, and then they can reflect on that. But women can easily imagine Jesus bleeding and suffering there. And then he was slapped. He never complained. And then you talk to him. This is prayer. Jesus, you have been suffering so much. You never complain. Why, Jesus? Because this is already prayer. The moment you talk to him. But then after that, you look at yourself. Because the meaning of prayer is transformation. Then you look at yourself and Jesus, for every little thing I complained. I'm not like you. I want to be like you. So Jesus, please make me like you. For the love of you, because you are doing this for the love of me. Please make me like you. And then you talk to him. You ask God in order that I will be, if you can even have all the occasions there that you are hurt and all of that, because Jesus enters into these experiences. He brings healing into your feelings, into your heart feelings. And then at the end, you will say, Jesus, now, today, when my boss or my wife or my husband will shout at me and I will do something, I will remember you here. And I will try to keep silent. Jesus, remind me. Now, this is very important because many of us pray, but our prayer is only there. But if we do this kind of resolution, you bring the effect of prayer. You bring the presence of Jesus outside of prayer in your own life. And this is the beginning of the transformation of the person. Little by little, you are transformed when you remember. Because many people are saying, Sister, there are many sisters who are praying always in the chapel, but then when they go out, they are always scolding. That's true. But I always joke and tell them, it's better that they pray because they are only scolding. Because if they do not pray, maybe they are killing you already. So it's good. It's good to pray. Even if the effect is not there. No? The way we want it. We don't know. There might be some transformation in their lives. We really don't know. Now, you say, what is the difference of contemplation and prayer? Let me tell you. When we pray, for example, I will say, Our Father who art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. I am talking to God. When I go into contemplation, God is talking to me. What is God talking to me? How to make concrete my prayer. For example, give us this day our daily bread. God is teaching you. Where? How will you get your daily bread? Forgive us our trespasses. Excuse me. God is also telling you how you will forgive. Where are your trespasses that you need to be forgiven? So, when we pray, we are talking to God. In contemplative prayer, we go into silence because God is talking to us. How to make concrete our prayer. So that is the reason why. Now, afterwards, in the meditation, little by little, you become a changed person. Then, there are crises in our life. Cannot be. Why? Because it is crisis that brings us deeper. Do you notice that when you pray, when you have no problems, you just pray, Our Father who art in. The moment you have problems, you kneel down there, you close your eyes, and then you really pray fervently. That's the time you're brought down. Now, That's why it's necessary that we need to have crisis. That's the dark night. That's the language of St. John of the Cross. We need crisis in our life. Now, many of you have experienced crisis and great crisis in your life. Then you experience God. And many things change in your mind. And that's a real experience of God. What does it mean? God brought you very deep into the contemplative state where your mind, your imagination is being enlightened by God. That is a different level. That is why we need to go into contemplative prayer. Otherwise, our perspective in life do not change. But when we are deeper, because we are closer to the indwelling of the Spirit, we receive strongly the light of God. So God brings you very deep. And after that, you change. And you experience God in a very beautiful way. Now, you would like to remain there all the time. But no, you cannot. Because prayer is developmental. A little child cannot become 10 years old. He has to develop. And it is also like that in your life of prayer. So, you were brought to contemplation already. That's very high already in prayer. But you have not yet even seen your need to be angry, your need to be jealous, and the 7 capital sins in our lives. That is the greatest hindrance in our life. God really out of His love for us, really go beyond all of that weaknesses in order that we experience Him. But then, we go back to the upper level because we are not yet transformed. But we think we are. That's why it's very necessary, if you are training people, to tell them that that change in you is only temporary. It's only temporary because why? God, in His infinite wisdom, know where you can understand His communication to you. It is what we call in the spiritual life, through the senses. It is sensible feelings. It is through the senses. Because you are still a very sensual person. You are living in the level of the senses. So what happens now? God also will adjust to you. He is going to enter into your feelings. That's why you think that you are so full of God. Many people who are just converted, they go to church, they go to meetings, and they are always talking about God, they sing, all of that. And many of us think that they are really there already, very high. No. That is a very elementary stage. That's why if you notice, there are many people who get converted because no one tell them. That's what John of the Cross said. They need to be instructed. That is only temporary. Because why? They're going to church. They're going to the meetings. They're reading the Bible. Has the same, why are they doing that? Because they like it. The principle is still the same. It is a selfish principle. Before they go to the majungan, they go to the cockpit, they go drinking, because I like it. Now it's changed. I go to the church, I go to the meetings, and all, because I like it. The principle behind is still the selfish principle. That's why we need people who can guide us. Otherwise, you can see how many people who will enter into this kind of organization, many, but we have to warn them that this is only temporary. God is giving us all these nice feelings in order that we form good habits of prayer. Because once it is a habit, you do not anymore get out of it. So, even later on that you do not like to pray, you continue to pray. You know that very well. That at the beginning of any organization, many people will enter. It's there flocking. But little by little, it dwindles. Why? Because they did not form habits of prayer. They do not realize that this is only temporary. it's very important, especially what is really dangerous here. They become proud because they are already there. And pride goes before a fall. If we are proud, we will really fall. And the more proud we are, the more low we become. That's why it's very important to prepare people who are just converted that this is only temporary. Little by little, they will enter deeper, and the first thing that they will meet are their issues. What are the issues? Now, let me explain to you. These are the issues. These are the 8 stages of human personality development that God in His infinite wisdom gave it to us because it's necessary for us. 0 to 1 year old, you need affection. How does it become an issue? If I was not given at that stage, then I am going to look for it as I grow older. Now, let me give you a very concrete example. I have been going around and I'm always explaining about contemplation and prayer, and then the different stages of prayer. And then one day, a lady in the crowd talked to me and he said, "Sister, you know, I thank you because you are explaining to us. Because you know, habits that are not good, sinful habits have effects in our life. Number 1, it darkens the mind. That is why people, Saint Teresa was saying, let me explain first. Saint Teresa was saying that while she was looking at the castle that is very beautiful, suddenly it turns black. Could not see anymore the castle. And what she saw were wild animals outside of the castle trying to prevent the person to enter the castle. And she explained. She said, you know, those wild animals, he said, they are terrible. They are very, very frightful animals, trying to snakes and lions and all of that. These are the habits of sin that prevents the person to enter the castle, that prevents the person to become again in the state of grace. Now, he said, that castle that is darkened is a person who decides to commit a mortal sin. And you know, today, if you notice, there are plenty of possession of the devil. Why? It is because, Teresa said, once a person decides to commit a mortal sin, he is listening to the devil. Instead of listening to the Holy Spirit and to the Blessed Trinity inside you, we don't realize how terrible is mortal sin in our life. And today, this is what really is very sad. There is no more sense of sin. In our dresses, in our behavior, in our lives, there is no more sense of sin. No matter there are plenty of possession, because the devil is very easy to hold on us when we are in the state of sin. If you notice, there is no more sense of sin. People are committing sin and they think it's nothing. The first effect, he said, is the darkening of the mind. That is why sin is no more sin. You know, when I look at it now, sexual sin and all of this, our young people, I don't know what will happen to the next generation. We have to pray. There is no more sense of sin. Now, according to Saint Teresa, it darkens the mind. No, this is not Saint Teresa, this is Saint John of the Cross. Saint John of the Cross is the companion of Saint Teresa in the Reformation of Carmel. He said, it darkens the mind, that the sin is no more sin. And it is happening today. And he said, it weakens the moral of the person. And then he said finally, all sins are addictive. Why? Because once you commit again, you commit again, you commit again the sin. So I was giving these talks to a certain group abroad. And a lady came to me. And she said, Sister, thank you very, very much for explaining to us about sin. Now, how can you help me? Because I know I am now in the state of sin. But I do not like to live my sin. How can you help me? And so I told her, not even God will force you to leave your sin, because you have to do it out of your own free will. But what you can do now, even if you know that you are in a state of sin, are to do good works with the hope that God will give you the grace to leave your sin. Because only God can give us that grace. We can be instruments, but we cannot give the grace. Only God. But if God sees that we are very, very serious about it, doing works of mercy, and every time our Blessed Mother appears, she always say, pray for sinners, that they will come back to God. Make sacrifices, pray the rosary, she said that. And when the little children in Fatima asked, Mother, what kind of sacrifices are you asking? The daily little sacrifice. She did not ask to enter the Carmelites and then live your life. And no, she did not ask that. The little sacrifices. For example, I don't complain when I want to complain. Delayed gratification. For example, I am very, very thirsty and I want to grab a cold of water immediately. There's nothing wrong. But if I delay it and say, Jesus, I offer this to you for sinners, that has a terrific effect in the life of people and also in your own life. It is little things that marks great love. That's the reason why little sacrifices, and we have 1,000 of that during the day. The heat, when it is so warm, it's so easy. So, oh, how hot it is. But if we really think of it, but you do it for the love of Jesus, for the love of God, no? These are the little sacrifices that really helps people. So I told this to the lady, all right, you give alms, you hear mass, and all of that, with the hope that God will give you the grace, because no one can change his life from sin to without sin, without the grace of God. No one. That's why the prayers of those whom we love will help very, very much. So anyway, I said, you cannot change unless God will give you the grace, but you can do good things. But I said, I just want to know what happened to you when you were a little child. And then she said, sister, as far as I can remember, my mother has been very, very nice to me since. And I said, if your mother is still alive, you better ask her what happened to you when you were a little child. The next morning she came and she said, Sister, something really happened to me. Not when I was a child, but when I was being conceived. And she said, my mother and my father, when they met, it was like a whirlwind romance. And I was conceived before they were married. And so I asked her, is your mother a practicing Catholic? And she said, yes. She was brought up by nuns. She was a convent girl. This is a very important question. Why? Because the Catholics forbid premarital sex. We know it is sinful. And the moment you were conceived, your mother was feeling guilty. Your mother was afraid. And guilt and fear are very negative feelings that creates negative energies that you receive at the moment of your conception. And these negative energies will make a person insecure. You had it already at the moment of your conception. So that's very, very deep in the unconscious. And then she said, I was already born, they were already married when I was born. But during those times, there were terrible fightings because of the adjustment, anger, and all of that. Again, this is a negative energy that the child received in the womb. And afterwards, they decided to separate. Can you imagine a woman who's about to give birth and she will separate? What insecurity she must have felt. And it was also transmitted to the child in the womb. And then finally she said, my mother wanted to abort me. That is 0 to 1 year old. Abortion. And so, I told her, but later on she realized that it's not good. And she really loved me very much. So she said, as far as I can remember, my mother loves me very much. That is in her conscious already. But in the unconscious, she was very, very insecure. So what happened? I said, the Catholic Church really and truly try to make marriages really secured. Why? Because it is the beginning of life. Security is very important for for children who are about to be born. So, however, you said, that is why if the family is functional, meaning to say the father, there are problems, but it is not really as great as your problem. The mother also is, there are still insecurities, but it is manageable. So, what does insecurity do? It is emptying your heart. And that's the reason why you are so insecure that you take one man after the other. Because she told me, my sin is this, sister. I married very young, and then I live with this man. Afterwards, I fell out of love, and then I again found another man, and I live with him again. And then I fell out of love, and then I married, and again stay with another man, and this is the fourth man. And he is married. He left his wife and children, and we are together, and I'm happy with him. That's why I cannot leave him. And I told him, you can finish all the men in the world. You will not be satisfied. Why? Because the human heart is made for God. That is why the longings of the human heart is infinite. And human conditions and human beings are finite. It is only when you fill it first up with God that you will enjoy the gifts of God. You will enjoy your husband, you will enjoy your children, but let God first be the one. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added to you. Why is it that we are not contented? It is because these things are finite, and the longings of the human heart is infinite. So I told her, you can finish all the men in the world. But do you know what happened? It's your insecurity that makes you commit the sin of lust, the sin of adultery. So this is the reason why I tell you that our insecurities are the material for us to commit sin. It can be many people, for example, who are insecure. They are very selfish. They're trying to put in money, or whatever it is. There are many people who are very insecure that they are always angry. There are many people who are, but it is the result, is the 7 capital sins. There are people who are insecure that they are envious and they put down people all the time because they want to be put up. It depends on the person. But many of these sinfulness has been caused by our deep insecurity in our heart. That's the reason why now Today, when I see children put in the garbage can, what will be the next generation when these people are so insecure? That is why we need to become contemplatives so that we can handle all of this. Because when you're a contemplative, you are being guided by the Spirit how to do it. Now, let me go again because I need to explain to you the different levels of prayer. Now, if you are a mother, try to talk about your little children when they are still small, when they want to listen stories about Jesus, about our Blessed Mother, about the saints, because those are the things that will remain in their consciousness. When you teach them and when you talk to them about when they are already high school, they will not remember all of that. But it is this. Because I experienced that in my own life. Now, let me give you my own life in order to be able to explain to you the different levels of prayer as I experience it. Because this is how, sisters, my dear people, I am sharing with you my life. That is the reason why maybe God calls me. Now, I belong to a very religious family in Cebu. I am a Cebuana. My father is a lawyer and a doctor. My mother is a nurse. Now, my mother wanted very much to become a nun. But she could not because she's the youngest in the family of 13 and she's to take care of her own mother. And so she got married with my father. Now, because my mother wanted to become a nun, that is the unfulfilled dream of my mother, so she compensated it and make our house more than a Carmelite monastery. We have to pray very early in the morning, the Trisahiyo, we were only small children. We have to pray the rosary kneeling down. But I am giving advice now to couples, do not let your children fill in your broken dreams. Why? Because God has a dream for each one of them. They will never be happy if they will follow your dream. Because God has another plan for each one of us. What you need is to discover what is the plan of God for my child and help them to fulfill it. No matter what that plan is, because all states in life are good. If that is the way God plans it for you. So anyway, we have to pray the rosary kneeling. And after the rosary, 1 Our Father, 1 Hail Mary for Saint Anthony, 1 Our Father, 1 Hail Mary, 1 Glory from all the saints in heaven. That's why I really hated to pray. I did not like to pray. But I am always at prayer because I do not get my allowance if I do not pray. So that is where I told you that this kind of prayer can be prayed without conviction. It's only out of fear or out of obligation. For me, it is to get my allowance. And I was living a double life. I am always praying there with my mother, but I was the problem of my family. Because I am addicted to movies. I have no money. So I used to steal the money from the pocket of my father. And when he will ask me, who stole the money? Were you the ones? I tell lies after lies after lies, but I'm always at prayer. You can live double lives. But then I realize now, whom are we really fooling? At the end, we have to give an account of our life. So anyway, that was my life. But then, my mother, since the very beginning when we were very small, always taught us that Jesus is our friend. That's the reason why all my life, I am very close to Jesus. I talk to him as if he is really there all the time. I tell him jokes and I tell him many, many things. And maybe that's the reason why I'm inan, although I was a rebellious daughter of my mother. I was addicted to movies and I used to cut classes. And then, I studied in St. Teresa's College. And the nuns during the time always tell us that you will get married. I didn't have any vocation. I cannot remember that I wanted to become a nun. I hated the nuns. But then, they always tell us that, my mother always tell us that, Jesus is always your friend. I'm always telling you now, you better train your children that they have a friend. That they have a friend. And if you have a friend who is like Jesus, he will be very, very powerful. So, that is the reason why maybe I can go anywhere in the world alone. Why? Because I know he is there. I talk to him all the time. But where did I learn this? When I was a little child, from my mother. The way I look at it, I really treated him like a friend because I told him many times, do not allow me to be caught by my father when I steal money. I'm not telling you to steal money, but I will tell you, I was never caught. So anyway, he is my friend. And all of us in the family, he has been our friends. We went through all terrible sufferings, but we come out of it because of our friendship with him. So anyway, the nuns in our school were telling us that, after your high school, you are going to get married. But, it was an exclusive school. So we were really trained that when we will get married, we will marry people in the higher level of society. So we were taught how to be graceful and all of that. And finally, my only dream was to marry the ambassador of Russia. Why? Because I was intrigued we were always praying for the conversion of Russia. What is that Russia ba? So I want to marry the ambassador of Russia. But then, never in my mind that I'll become a nun because I don't like the nuns. But then, afterwards, I was there. Then I said, it is good to have a boyfriend before marrying the ambassador of Russia. So I had a boyfriend. And I really love also my boyfriend. But we were very lucky because that was the age of chaperone. Every time I tell my mother, Mom, I like to go to the movie with my boyfriend. Oh, she calls, all right, you go. I have 4 younger brothers and sisters. You go with her. So, you are in the movie house, you are here, your boyfriend is there, you cannot even touch the finger of your boyfriend. So I tell you, nothing happened. Why? Not because I am good, but because I really have no chance to do it. Because I'm just like any other young people also. So anyway, but we were very lucky. Why? Because they were there to keep us from committing sin. I pity the young today. That is why mothers and fathers today have to be very close to our Lord in order that our Lord will be, and Our Lady will be the one to be there all the time. Because culture has really changed. That is the reason why we really need to pray and really to pray.